All right, so to get started, for those of you that may not know me, you're wondering why I'm standing in front of you today. I'll give you a quick background. It's not about me today, it's about you. Thank you. So I think it's important to give you a quick 1-minute overview on kind of who I am. So my name, by way of formal introduction, is Ali Zamany. Currently 35 years old, married. That's my wife in the back, Christina. We have we got four beautiful kids at home, 13, 11, 4, and newborn. Yeah, thank you. So my background is I immigrated to Toronto, Canada as a refugee from Iran at the age of 5. 1979, there was a revolution in Iran with the Shah. Anybody that fled pre-revolution never got exposed to the 80s. My family stayed post-revolution. We got hit with a decade-long war with Iran and Iraq. So I was born in 83 and 88, 5 years later. My dad decided to flee the country. We ended up in Canada as refugees, and that's where I grew up the majority of my life. The reason why I bring this up is to give you perspective, because you might see me in the suit today, but this is not how it started. I'm a firm believer in the fact that rock bottom builds more success than that of privilege. I was never privileged. I did not grow up, can I swear? Yes. With a fucking silver spoon, okay? Maybe a plastic spoon at best. You know, when you go to a new country and you don't speak the language and you don't know the culture, you don't know how to immerse into there socially, especially for my parents. I had to go into ESL. I had to learn, bless you, a new language. I had to learn a new culture. I had to learn a new way of living. Luckily, I was a bit younger, so for me, it was easier to adapt. But I grew up on public assistance. I grew up on welfare. I lived in subsidized housing. When everybody got the Sega Genesis, I was just getting the Atari. I was always 2 gaming systems behind. A lot of things that I wanted growing up, I was deprived of. But like Anthony Robbins always says, the twin propellers that run your life every day are pain and pleasure. Everything that you do every day is for your motivation to either want to gain pleasure or avoid pain. What do you think most people are motivated by? Avoiding pleasure. Yeah. You would think logically, right? Consciously, we want to gain pleasure. But we don't go to work and work hard every day to increase our standard of living to become better. The real motivation internally, subconsciously, is to avoid that pain. So growing up at an early age, I had a lot of pain. I knew what pain felt like. Yeah, look, he even agrees too. I had a lot of pain growing up. So inevitably, I wanted to avoid that pain as much as I could. I'll give you a quick example. Your neighbor calls you at 3 in the morning, okay? And he says, Kobe, I got that $50 I owe you. Why don't you get out of bed, walk outside, walk over to my house, and I'll give you that $50 I owe you. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. What are you probably gonna do? Will you really? No, on a serious note, I know we're motivated to, but who would get up at 3 in the morning to go get the money? Or would you say, you know what, dude, it's pretty late right now, just give it to me tomorrow at work? All right? Okay, cool. Now, if your neighbor called you at 3 a.m., Kobe, and the conversation was a bit different, now maybe Kobe's the wrong example because he's gonna go either way. He's just a go-getter. Yeah. If your neighbor calls you at 3 a.m., and says, Kobe, you parked illegally in front of the fire hydrant. The tow truck's outside, they're hitching your car onto the truck, and if you don't get out here in 30 seconds, it's gonna cost you $50 to get your car back. What are you gonna do? Oh yeah, you're gonna dash outside, right? You're gonna Superman down the stairs, clothed or not, and you're gonna run out because you're trying to avoid the pain of losing 50 when you weren't motivated to gain the pleasure. That sums up me growing up. I had a lot of pain. Going into high school, you know, I started out pretty decent. I got diagnosed with ADHD at a very early age, you know, grade 1. I'm eccentric to say the least for those of you that know me. High school came around, I did all the dumb shit that everybody does, right? All the things that you're not supposed to do as a teenager. And going into grade 11, believe it or not, I actually failed grade 11. And that really hurt. And my mom sat me down and said, we came to this country, it's the land of opportunity for you to be able to do something with your life. Just focus for 1 year. So I took night school and summer school, got my credits for grade 11, went into grade 12, started taking my Ritalin, started focusing, and ended up getting a 94% average. Got a scholarship to university. My undergrad was in accounting, and I was getting geared up to go to law school. So I had this 12-year trajectory, 4 years undergrad, 4 years law school with an 85% failure rate, and then 4 years of interning to come out $500,000 in debt to make possibly a six-figure income, and I was fucking excited about it, right? Because that's all I knew. And then I started a summer job going door to door with a startup selling energy, natural gas, and electricity door to door. I had no idea what it was. All I knew is, well, I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'm not gonna freaking knock on people's doors. I don't wanna work on commission. I'm above this. So I came in for the summer and made about $50,000. So when you're 19 and you make $50,000 in the summer, all your future plans go out the window, right? So all of a sudden I'm thinking about, well, wait, because I'm good in accounting, right? So I made $50,000 in a summer. If you multiply that by 4, that's $200,000 a year from being a professional door knocker. So September came around and I had to tell my parents, who were divorced at the time, Mom, Dad, I'm dropping out of school. I'm not going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to knock on people's doors for a living. And I think you guys know exactly what happened. I got the ultimatum, right? Quit your job and go back to school, or if you're going to go door to door, you're going to be a door knocker, you got to move out of the house. I did. I had so much pain when I started in door-to-door sales. Maybe you can relate. Friends that were close to me, family members, nobody believed in what it was that I was actually doing. But that motivated me, that drove me. Turned 20, first year I made 6 figures. A few years later, the company went public. A few years later, they opened up in the US. A few years later, they became a $5 billion company. And a few years later, I managed 500 sales reps in 14 states, 6 provinces, and was making 8 figures and making more than any independent contractor in the company, including the CEO. So I had achieved my dream of what I wanted to do, starting from the ground level, a door-to-door sales rep. I was inexperienced, I was uneducated, I was motivated, but I was very entry level. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, maybe not even 2 brain cells at that time to rub together. But I was motivated and I was committed. And that was my story in door-to-door sales. A couple of years ago, they decided to convert the company, from 1099 to W-2. I converted my entire sales force. They gave me an 85% pay cut. I declined. I got terminated. And the reason why I bring this up, real important note, and I'll get into this, is there's a really good book. It's a biography on Jeff Bezos. It's called The Everything Store, okay? And what he talks about in the book is he's in his early 30s, 31 years old, a prominent Wall Street executive making a 6-figure income. And then in 94, that's around the dot-com era where it was beginning to launch. And he had this crazy idea to build an online book retailer that eventually would sell everything. So he went and told his family and his friends and even his boss to be able to give a capital contribution into his concept. And all he did is hear the incredible laughter of everybody else. In his mind, he knew that this would be big. Initially, it wasn't called Amazon, by the way. It was called Cadabra.com, abracadabra. And his idea of Cadabra is something that stuck with him. So every day when he showed up to his Wall Street job, that's what he wanted to do. And one day, he sat down, and it's something that he calls regret minimization framework, which is a really nerdy way of just saying, try to minimize the amount of regrets in your life. So how he does this exercise is he fast forwards his life to his future self many decades down the road, whatever age you choose. Then he reflects back on his current life and he pinpoints what regrets he's gonna have. And he said, inevitably, you're gonna have regrets, some big, some small. Some will sustain, some will dissipate, but everybody's gonna have regrets. And he said, the pain of not knowing what could be with Cadabra was a deeper pain than having tried and having failed. That was the basis. That was the foundational basis of his decision. So he packed up his shit, went to Seattle, and the rest is history. So I was, faced with a very similar situation. I've been in door-to-door for 13 years. I've done really well for myself. What am I gonna do next? But I just decided that, I really wanted to embody the spirit of entrepreneurialism and be able to venture out on my own, which I did. I'd never raised capital, nor do I think I'm fit to speak to investors. So I decided to self-fund the venture with 7-figure seed capital, launched a water filtration company, door-to-door, grew to 5 states. Then I launched a home improvement contractor financing business as well. We just rounded out our second year, but our first full year, and we cracked 10 million, 8 figures in revenue, second year of me ever running a business on my own. And that, thank you. I didn't know what it was to run a business. I thought I was a businessman, but I was part of a businessman. That's all I was. Yeah, I had no idea, I learned a new word, equity, and I wanted every percent of it. And I had this card that said I'm CEO, and I felt empowered. And it's the exact opposite. Entrepreneurship is 90% eating shit, 10% eating caviar. Social media gives a false impression because everybody gets to paint their own story and narrative. It's this fabricated reality where all you see is the 10% highlight reel of me eating caviar or somebody else. Nobody sees the behind the scenes of what actually happens. I learned that firsthand. So the reason I tell you this story, it's a bit more long-winded than I wanted to, is I went from refugee to door knocker to CEO. And over the course of my career in door-to-door, that name was given to me, so I put it on my plate. I've sold lifetime over $1 billion in door-to-door. Yeah. Selling $1 billion and making $1 billion are two different things, by the way. Okay. So listen, today's not about, talking about 10, 9, 8, 7 figures. The goal today is to talk about something that I feel is very important. There are two ends of the spectrum when it comes to success. There's skill set, and then there's mindset. Skill set, let me tell you something. Door-to-door is a learned skill, okay? That's the good news. You can learn these skills over an extended period of time. Mindset, I believe, and this is my opinion, it's subjective, I believe that mindset is equally as important. To me, it's actually more important than skill set. So what does mindset exactly mean? So I had 24 hours here to prepare. I tried to put together a slideshow as quickly as possible, and I put a bunch of topics here, and I'm going to run through them in no specific order, but I want to talk to you guys about the power of your mind. Listen, before I get started, disclaimer. This is not something they teach you in high school or university. There's not courses that you take. When we talk about goal setting and visualization and power of positive thinking and mindset, it seems really corny and really hokey and really cheesy because people don't accept and embrace and acknowledge it. But here's what I'll tell you. I'd rather be really corny and really rich than really cool and really broke. How about you? Yeah. Okay, so these are important things. This is not just a bunch of mental voodoo that we're going to talk about. These are important things that you have to use and understand and implement to train your mindset, okay? All right, moving on. So I thought we'd get started with doing maybe a few quotes. Quotes are so infamous nowadays because you can't help but scroll on social media and see the newest quote or the newest meme, and it gets you motivated. A lot of people, I think Gary Vee says it best, they want to hang out at the finish line, but they don't want to run the race. That's the problem, right? They don't want to go through the process. So I thought, let's go through some of these important quotes that I love that really stick with me, and then let's talk about the actual process. Before we get started, I did this at Door-to-Door Con, and it was wildly successful. Usually I don't like people that have out their phones. I'm like the complete opposite of wanting phones out. But if you guys want, if you want to follow me on Instagram, if you're not doing it, you're more than welcome to do it now and during the presentation. follow me. And then if you guys want, go ahead and get clips of today. Tag me on your IG story. Make sure you tag me so it comes in my DM. And I'm going to be giving away an incentive today. So I'm going to be giving away $200 in cash to one winner. And I'm also going to give a free coaching call to somebody else with Brandon on the phone as well. So we're going to do a three-way call with one of the reps, myself, and Brandon, okay? That's right. All right. Probably my most favorite quote. Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This is very powerful. Don't let the simplicity of the phrase take away from its merit and its brevity. Read that again and interpret the words word by word. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Everything begins first with a decision. And not just a decision, but in what I call an irreversible decision to move forward. Because people make decisions all the time, but they don't follow through. People think they're committed, but they're really not. To me, the definition of commitment, by the way, is this. Staying true to what you said you would do long after the mood that you said it in has left you. Everybody's committed. You get caught up in the hype, right? The lust of making commitments and making decisions. It's making an irreversible decision to move forward, that no matter what happens, you're not backtracking. A lot of people want to make decisions, but are you willing to make an irreversible decision? And by the way, decisions don't take long. You know what takes so long? Building up the fucking courage to want to make a decision. You want to quit smoking? It happens instantly. You want to start doing something or stop doing something? It literally happens instantly. You make this decision in your mind and that's it. There's no ramp up time. There's no lead time. Oh, starting next month, starting next week, starting next year, starting Monday, I'm going to start doing this. No, starting now. Get that out of your vocabulary. It's Thursday and you're like, oh yeah, starting Monday, I'm going to go to the gym. Starting Monday, I'm going to read books. Starting Monday, I'm going to come early to the office and role play. No, do it now. Because if you're sitting down and talking about what you're going to do a few days from now, you're not going to follow through. What's great is you're sitting down on your couch, eating out of a tub of ice cream, saying, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to go to the gym right now and push yourself to do it. Decisions happen instantly. It's building up the courage to want to make that decision. Choose wisely, by the way. Choose wisely what you decide. If you decide that you can be successful in door-to-door and sell over $1 billion, you're right. If you feel door-to-door is a tough racket, and that it's not consistent and that you can't make money, you're also right. We are the best salespeople. We convince ourselves of our own bullshit every single day. Just make sure you choose wisely, okay? Number two, one of my favorite ones, actually I got it ingrained on the ring here. Napoleon Hill, anybody ever read that book, Think and Grow Rich? Great book. How much time do I have just so I know? Okay, all right, really? Okay, got it. Okay. What the human mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. So what does that actually mean? Conceiving, this is where you conceive things, right? The 6 inches of gray matter between your ears. That's where the conceiving happens, your mind. Believing that something can actually happen. A lot of times in life, you have these beliefs. And they're either A, limiting beliefs, or B, empowering beliefs. By the way, beliefs are what separate human beings. Beliefs separate someone like a Charles Manson from Mother Teresa. 2 people in the same physical universe adopted different beliefs. One believed that it's okay to take away life versus one that believed that she has to contribute to life. 2 people in the same world, same opportunity. What's the difference between the billionaire and the bum? What's the difference between everybody is their belief system. Most people think they grow up in life with their own sets of morals and ethics and values, and that's true to a certain extent, but how do you think that got created? It's been shaped through media, politics, society, teachers, parents, environments that we grew up in. So what happens is, especially nowadays, right? And I'm not scared of too many things, but I'm scared for my children because we're in an age of information overload. It's going to be very tough for them to navigate and be able to sift through the shit to be able to identify what's right and what's wrong. That's the challenge, right? So as you get older, you get to choose your beliefs. When you become aware, self-aware that, hey, I create my own beliefs. Listen, at the end of the day, a lot of things people don't agree on. Politics is probably one of them. I don't ever give anybody the power, one individual, to completely impact or destroy my life. I've never done that. So at the end of the day, do politics affect my life? No. That's why I disregard it. That's why I don't watch the news, by the way. I'm not worldly. I don't need to be kept up to date. The news makes money on portraying and perpetuating whatever stereotypes fit their narrative. And in addition, it's mostly negative. Ted Turner became a multi-billionaire from creating CNN. When's the last time you turned it on and saw some positive news? Everything is negative. I don't need to be exposed to that. I don't need to condition my mind to that. I would find myself trolling on Facebook and scrolling on the timeline and seeing nothing but, wars in third world countries, police brutality locally in the US, and now I'm scared when I see cops for no good reason because I've been psychologically conditioned through the repetition of what they throw out there. So I try to sit down and say, all right, what beliefs do I need in my life that are going to empower me? And a lot of times it's as easy as taking a belief that you already have, being honest with yourself. Maybe you said, you know what, I can't be successful because I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too short, I'm too black, I'm too white, I'm too Persian, I'm too educated, I have no education. Whatever the case might be. I had a good upbringing, I had a bad upbringing. You need to identify what belief system you currently have, be honest, and sometimes it just takes a small shift to remove the not from I am not to I am. Small fundamental changes to change your actual belief level. That's important because what you conceive and what you believe, inevitably, you will achieve. And we're going to get back to this a little bit later on, but that's a really important quote. All right, so next one, my own quote, obviously. Had to throw it in there. The difference between successful and unsuccessful people is the way in which they think. The root of everything is our thoughts, how we think. So the difference between people that are successful on a large scale and the ones that aren't are in the way in which they think. So going to the next slide here, I want to discuss this real quick. Perspective. Perspective is key. So what does perspective mean exactly? Perspective is an attitude towards something. It's a point of view. Perspective is subjective, not objective, which means it's open for interpretation. Let me give you a quick example. Take a look at that. It's a very simple image, but a very powerful one. Perspective is subjective. It's open to your own interpretation of it. You get to judge how you want to react to things. Remember, life is 10% what happens to you, and 90% your reaction to it. A lot of people feel like they don't have control in their lives, right? People become what I call the victim. By the way, there's 3 symptoms of a victim. You want to know what they are? They blame, they complain, and they justify. Number 1, blame. They blame anyone and everyone for where they are in their life, except for the person that controls it, which is themselves. Number 2, they complain, right? They love to be negative. Complain about the government, complain about their job, complain about their boss, complain about the weather, complain about opportunity, complain. By the way, does anybody want to know my solution? It's a surefire way to get rid of negative people in your life. Okay, here's what you do. You ready? You take that negative person, and then you introduce them to another negative person, and then you fucking run. Yeah. That's how you deal with negativity. You know what the second highest rate of suicide in any profession is? Psychiatrist. What's the job description of a psychiatrist? To listen to other people's problems. Negativity. Yep. And some people say, well, you know what? I'm just listening. That's okay. I'm being a lending ear, and I'm just being a shoulder to cry on. That old adage, garbage in, garbage out, you've heard of that? Yep. That's not true. Through the power of repetition, some of that garbage sticks in your mind. So do me a favor, go to Google and put an average salary of a psychiatrist in Scottsdale. It's probably going to be about $129,000, probably going to be about $500 an hour, $120 a year. If you want to be a real good friend, give them half off. Charge your friends $250 an hour to talk to you. That's what happens. People love to complain. Anytime shit goes wrong in your life, what do? You automatically pick up your phone and you start having a pity party. Who can I invite to my pity party? And you start calling all the people closest to you in your life. Hey dude, you'll never guess what happened. I just crashed my car, I just lost my job. Oh, really? Man, that sucks. People are not giving you constructive criticism. They're not giving you solutions. All they're doing is magnifying the problem. And then the great equalizer has now become social media, because now you can go and share your problems with 10,000 people at a time. The whole world if you wanted to. So you got to be able to have perspective. For me, by the way, one of the key ways I get perspective, and I know this might sound counterproductive to what maybe you've learned, is I got asked this question yesterday. I was doing a podcast in Newport Beach, and somebody asked me a question. What is it that you can do to be successful faster? And I thought about that answer, and the first thing that came to mind within a half a second was, the one thing I can do immediately is fail quicker, fail more often, fail faster. And it's not just designed to be like this cliche statement. I firmly believe that failing, ing, is acceptable, failure is not. Let me explain the difference, okay? Failing is a verb. It's an action. It's part of the journey. Failure is a noun. It's a destination. It's the end result. By the way, failure is not falling down. Failure is falling down and refusing to get up. So like Bon Jovi said, I love that I'm quoting a rock star, but Bon Jovi said, fall down 7 times and stand up 8. So failing is acceptable. I'm a professional. I am a professional at failing. I have failed so many times in so many ways. And that's okay, because the quicker you fail, the more perspective you get. That's why I love door-to-door. What's a good day for security, by the way? How many sales? Every day. No, I mean like number. I love the responses. It's just a reflex, every day. a number. 2 to 4, let's say 3. How many doors you got to knock on to get 3? 100? 300. So it's a one. Maybe for him, maybe that's why he did 200, right? All right, so let's say 100 doors to get 3 deals, okay? That's a 97% failing rate. 97% of your day is filled with, no, I don't want it. Price is too high, price is too low. I've never heard of you, I've already heard of you. My husband's not home, my wife's not home. Get a real job, right? You get all these, yeah. You get all these objections. That's why I love door to door. 97% of your day is keeping you sharp. Not the 3% of the time you close, the 97% of the time that you don't. Because you know what happens when we close? We celebrate. You have the euphoria of winning. I just fucking closed the deal. Great. Woo! Then you get out of the door and you walk right to the next door because you don't want to crush your momentum. But you know what happens? When you go in there, you're halfway in your pitch, you're about to run credit, about to sign the deal, and then the deal falls apart, you come out there and you're deflated, but then you sit there and you psychoanalyze what went wrong. What could I have done differently? How, where, when, why, what? You ask all these questions. You analyze how you can take recourse and become better. It's another opportunity to intelligently begin again. That's why I love failing. It gives you perspective. Because every day, the way that we operate, and I don't care who you are, including myself, it's tough. We only see the 4 walls around us, like this room that we're in right now. When you fail, it gives you perspective of a bird's eye view. How different would your perspective be? Right now, you're looking at the 4 walls versus if we took you up about 50 feet, we cut off the roof and you got to see the entire office in one view, bird's eye view, how different would your perception and your perspective be? Much different, right? 100%. So what you need to do is you need to learn. That's why they have all these catchy phrases, right? You never lose, you just win or learn. But if you don't learn, let me make something absolutely fucking clear. If you don't learn, you fucking lost. Yeah. If you don't learn, you lost. You lose. That's what you need to do, is be able to get new perspective on things, because that's going to give you the opportunity to add to your arsenal when you're out there and you're closing deals. All right. So what happens is when you have different perspective, you start to view things differently. If you keep that up consistently, unequivocally, what begins to happen is you have a paradigm shift. Has anybody ever heard of that phrase, paradigm shift? All right, let me tell you what the definition is. Am I doing this wrong?
It double clicks.
Okay, double click, got it. That's it. 2 + 2 is 4. How does this work? There we go. There we go.
This might be a curse.
No shit. You're gonna carry your own prompter with you.
Yeah. Do we have AC in here?
Yeah, I got it.
You can crank it up. I'm a bit fired up. Plus my suit is tight. All right. So paradigm shift, the definition is a fundamental change in approach or underlying assumptions. You know what human beings love to do? Assume. We love to assume everything. And I'm here to tell you 2 words I learned 15 years ago that helped me change my perspective. You ready for it? Embed these 2 words in your mind. Don't assume. The only thing we're ever going to assume, because we're in door-to-door sales, is we're going to assume the sale. Right? That's the only thing we're going to assume. Don't assume. That relates to big things and small things. On a small level, you're in a neighborhood. You don't see a car in the driveway. Maybe the lights aren't on. Oh, they're probably not home. You assume and then you walk by. That's what everybody did before you when they went into that territory. You go into an area, this is upper class homes. I don't think I can close them on a one contact. And then you assume. That's what everybody else thought. Don't make assumptions in your life. Don't assume anything. What you need to do is you need to be able to formulate your perspective based on what's important to you. That's what's so incredible about life, is you get to craft the way in which you want to think. You get to formulate the way in which you want to act. You are completely in control. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to blame. You don't have to complain. You don't have to justify, because that's what losers do. I'm sorry. Losers, they justify why they're not going to be successful. Oh, I can't have this because of that. You guys should all try something. It's called the excuse test, okay? I heard this from Brian Tracy. Take your excuse and you hold it up to the light. And what I mean by that is, if there's anybody else in a similar or worse situation facing the exact same difficulties or worse than you, and they've managed to be successful, then I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, your excuse is invalid. If your excuse is, I have a high school education, I can't make it in door-to-door, here's an example for you. If your excuse is, oh, well, I'm not going to be successful because I grew up poor, or I'm not going to have this because of that, you have to find examples around you. To me, door-to-door is the great equalizer. You know why? Because it's an opportunity where, regardless of your age, your height, your weight, your gender, your ethnicity, your sexual preference, your command of the English language, your experience, education, or skin color, it does not matter. It does not judge. As long as you have a great attitude, you got a relentless and unwavering work ethic, and you're coachable, you're going to make it. You're going to be successful if you have that grit. But what needs to happen here, and I know this is door-to-door, and this sounds so fucking deep. Why are we talking about a paradigm shift? You have to shift the way in which you think. You have to. I used to have a fundamental belief that rainy days were shitty days, right? I get rained on, and I get soaked, and I'm having a tough time with customers, and I had a minor shift in the way I thought. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I think rainy days are good. Because if it's raining, that means that I'm going to walk faster. And when I walk faster, I'm going to talk faster, I'm going to knock faster, and I'm going to present more. And more people are going to be home because they're not going to be at work. So I'm going to have more success with my street sheet the first half of the day versus not having as many people home. What else? They're probably going to be in a bad mood. Sales is about transference of feelings. It's a lot easier to transfer enthusiasm and energy when somebody's down low. Because when someone's at the same octave you are, it becomes a lot more challenging because you have to surpass them. When someone's upset, because naturally people are reactive, right? You ever see people driving in the rain or at the office? People are reactive individuals. They let external sources control how they feel. Like you'll be driving to work on a rainy day and you look to your left or you look to your right and you see somebody sitting in the car and they're gripping the wheel. They just have this angry look, sour look. And you think in your mind, why are they so fucking angry? Because it's raining? You ever see people on Mondays, maybe not in this office because like we're the opposite in door-to-door sales, but regular jobs, you walk into an office building on a Monday. What happens? People are generally grouchy. They're not excited to start out the week. Tuesday comes, now they feel a bit of momentum, right? It's second day in the week. They're getting closer to the end of the week. Wednesday comes, and what do losers call Wednesday? Hump day. What's the concept of a hump? Well, I'm halfway up the hump, and it's all downhill from here. So they call it hump day because they're feeling the momentum. The week's half over. I can't wait to get away from work because I hate my job. Then Thursday comes. I believe Thursdays are the most productive day of the week. That's when everyone's trying to catch up on shit they didn't want to do at the beginning of the week and get everything done before Friday comes. Because Friday, they just want to get away. They want to escape. And then Friday comes. What's Friday called? TGI. Thank God it's Friday. Right? Thank God it's Friday. And although people are at work in the physical form, mentally they've already checked out. They're already planning out their weekend. When do you guys get paid? What day? Monday. Good. Good, because what I said would have been counterproductive. Why do you think employers pay you on Friday?
So you get the weekend. So you can come back broke.
Exactly. Get your money on Friday, get shit-faced over the weekend and spend your money, and come Monday, broke, looking to make another paycheck. They purposely pay you on Friday. Here, the concept of paying on Monday is you're starting out your week. You're in control. Mondays are an exciting day. You can dictate your paycheck. You can create. You can literally write your paycheck every Monday. It's a fundamental shift with small things that he does and they do that you may not even understand. Just a psychological aspect of paying at the beginning of the week versus the end of the week is just a minor shift, but inevitably it changes the way we think about things. T. Harv Eker, he has this great book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And he says, I'm going to give you an example of the difference in thinking between successful and unsuccessful people. He said successful people, rich people he calls them, successful people, they order a chocolate cake because they believe they deserve it, and they eat the entire cake. Middle class people believe that chocolate cake is just a bit too rich, so they have a small slice. And unsuccessful people, poor people, well, they don't order a cake. They order a donut, they focus on the whole, and wonder why they have nothing. It's a really abrasive way to get his point across, but it's the perspective and how people think, focusing on abundance versus focusing on what you actually don't have. So what you guys need to do here, and I'm not going to get too deep into it, I will a little bit later on, and we're going to discuss paradigm shift a bit more. All right, tree of life. I've coined this thing called tree of life, okay? Let me tell you how life works. Human beings, naturally, we were all like this. I know you might have conditioned yourself along the years. Human beings are just naturally negative, skeptical, pessimistic, opinionated, and judgmental. All of us are. And if you say that you're not, you're lying. It's just a natural human tendency because of the way in which we grow up. It's easier to be negative versus positive. It requires an effort. So what people do in life, I call it the tree of life. So I want you to envision a tree right here, okay? And it could be a small tree, big tree, any kind of tree that you want. And let's say fruits grow on this tree, right? The fruits of life. So what we do is every day we look at our tree of life and we look at the fruits because the fruit is the end result. And what we do is we're very judgmental about the fruits. That fruit's too big, that fruit's too small, that fruit's too ripe, that fruit's too rotten. I don't like that fruit, I like that fruit. We judge the fruits of our life. We judge the results. And social media has amplified this incredibly more because now, not only do we have our own issues with what's going on in our life, but the internet wants to make you feel like you're fucking behind because nobody's posting their failures, right? So now you start comparing to other people, and my thought is comparison is the thief of joy. So we're already suffering our own issues. You want to know what's the number one cause of mental health, in my opinion? Social media. It amplifies it even more. Now we're sitting here and feeling like our self-worth is even lower because we're comparing our behind the scenes to this like fabricated image and reality of something that's not true. Let me take a certain picture at a certain angle with a certain filter with a certain caption to be able to portray this image. People are no longer worried about their character. They're portraying an image, their own story that they've created. So we look at these fruits every day and we're not happy with them, but we don't do shit about it. We just sit there and wait for more fruits to grow. And the next set of fruits are going to be as crappy as the fruits that we have now. That's what 90% of the population does. They complain about the fruits, but they don't do anything about it. Now, Albert Einstein, I should have probably put this quote up as well, says the definition of insanity is performing the same action over and over and over again, expecting a different result. I've always said it, I'm rigid in my vision. Don't ever change your vision. Be rigid in your vision, but be flexible in your approach. But people put in the same action expecting a different result. So what you need to do is you need to start dissecting what determines, what creates my results. What creates your results? Your actions. So now you need to understand that in order for me to change my results, I need to change my actions. Because the fruit is connected to the branch. But it's even deeper than that. Because what's the branch connected to? The trunk, the actual tree. So what creates our actions? The way in which we feel. Our feelings determine our actions, or inactions at that. So the way we feel will dictate the actions that we take or fail to take, and then our actions invariably will determine our results. So the fruit is connected to the branch, which is then connected to the trunk. But what creates the trunk? The roots. So what does that mean? What's underneath the ground creates what's above the ground. The roots create the... Sorry, I pressed it 5 times. Twice. There we go. Up. There we go. The roots create the fruits. So, if the fruit is the result, and the branch is the action, and the trunk is the feeling, what's the root? Everything begins with... Karis, there we go. Can you just do it? Can you just do it? And I'll just point to you every time. So we're going to talk about... All right. Okay, cool. Everything begins with thoughts. So it's what's underneath the ground that creates what's above the ground. It's what is deemed invisible that actually creates the visible. So what determines our results? Our thoughts. What you see every day has been created as a result of what you've thought in here. So if you want to click all the way through to results, one more, stop. So if our thoughts, the way in which we think determines the way in which we feel and the way in which we act or fail to act and ultimately determines our results. And think about that for a second. When you think positively, right? What's the purpose behind all this motivation? What's the purpose behind the recognition? What's the purpose between this collaboration and camaraderie every morning and getting here so everybody feels good? It's not just a happy-go-lucky environment. It's to fill and spread positivity within the room, to enable you, to empower you, to inspire you, to impact you, to influence you in a positive way. Because if you're in a room with 50 other people and everyone's being positive, you're going to feel secluded. You know what I learned? Negative people feel uncomfortable in a positive environment. And adversely, positive people feel very uncomfortable in a negative environment. Winners feel uncomfortable in a losing environment, and losers feel uncomfortable in a winning environment. So when you come into a positive, winning environment, you can't help but just, even if you had a shitty morning, maybe your tire blew off and you got a ticket and you stubbed your toe out of bed and you've been having a shitty morning. And then you just show up to the office and you got these guys just happy and positive. You're just like, yeah, okay, I'll conform, I'm happy, I'm positive. Right? Then when you start thinking positive thoughts, like, well, I felt pretty shitty because it was raining today, but everyone seems to be excited. Everyone's clapping for the rain. They're throwing money around. It's raining money. All of a sudden you think positive, and then you feel good, right? The dopamines kick in, the endorphins, and you're feeling empowered. Then you go out there, and you were intimidated, maybe on the way to work, like you got out of the car, you're like, oh my God, it's raining, let me run. And then you get out of the van, and you're like, it's raining. I don't care, because I'm going to make money today. Anybody that's ever knocked doors with me, I don't take an umbrella. I embrace it. Anybody ever go to a theme park, by the way? Show of hands. Anybody ever go on a water ride at a theme park? Okay, you pay to go to a theme park, right? Okay, so you're paying to get wet. You're actually getting wet for free. Why not get paid to get wet? You like that? I just made that up. Good. All right, $20. You ready? Yeah. So now you feel good, right? You're empowered. You feel like putting in action. Yeah. Brendan said rainy days are the best days. I'm going to make money today. I feel great. I'm going to close my first 5 doors. Then you go out there, and that energy and enthusiasm and confidence inevitably will create that result. And then once you get that result, that's the important piece that you have to recognize. See, a lot of people, they hear about the power of positive thinking. They have a positive thought or whatever the case might be, but they don't follow this entire process. I'm going to give you an example. Do we have a table here? Do we have a small table with folding legs? No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Huh? Chair works. Yeah, let me do this. Okay. So a table is made up of 2 components. A tabletop and supporting legs. Okay, I need you guys to visualize with me, okay? This is a tabletop. Is this a table? No. What is it? Tabletop. What will make this a table? Legs. Cool. So a thought is like a tabletop. It's got no support or reinforcement behind it. You can have all these positive thoughts all day long, but if I try to get this table to stand up on its own, it probably won't. The only way to do it is to have supporting legs. So every time I go through this cycle, I'm going to write 4 deals today. I'm going to write 4 deals. I feel good. I put in the action. I get the result. Holy shit, I did 4 deals. Now what you've done is you've added 1 supporting leg. It's not enough though, right? It's not going to stand up on its own. You have to add multiple supporting legs. And what happens is the more and more legs that you add, eventually it becomes a tabletop. And eventually when you add so many legs, it's not only a decision that you've made, but like I mentioned, it's an irreversible decision. Nobody can break that table. I could literally stand up on my table right now and it can't be broken. Something that was once a tabletop, right? That didn't exist. Now I can stand on top of it. It can't be broken. Nobody can tell me otherwise. And what happens if you go to the next slide, I'll give you your chair back, is your results. Unequivocally, your results will create your belief system. Your results create your beliefs. People ask me all the time, how are you so positive? How do you stay motivated? It required a lot of effort in the early days. But what happens is, because I've had so many successful results and I've created that empowering belief, that it's almost effortless to me. It's habitual. My beliefs now create my new thoughts every morning when I wake up. I woke up negative this morning. Ask my wife. You know why? Because I got my suit hemmed last minute yesterday with the dry cleaner. And I didn't try it on before my wife picked it up. I don't know if you can see, but they're just a little bit too short. I had to pull my pants down. And I woke up just negative in the morning. And then I just started having all these other negative thoughts. Oh my God, I didn't really study my presentation. How's this going to go? I'm really tired. Oh shoot, we're going to get there late. And I'm thinking of all these negative things. And the mind's a magnet. We attract negativity. I'm in this negative whirlwind and my wife doesn't even want to talk to me. She's like, it's okay, Ali, it's no problem, just calm down. And I got into this negative frame of mind, but I got into the Uber and just naturally, I didn't have to do anything. The positivity took back over me, right? I just went through a moment because I've created that belief that any external sources are not going to dictate how I feel and my mood. So naturally, it's a reflex, right? Just like when somebody comes to try to punch you, you might punch. It's a reflex. Yeah. That's how it is. So that's how you create your beliefs, by going through this entire cycle. When you get to this point, now it happens effortlessly. So when you wake up in the morning, you have these positive thoughts. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool, because it took me half an hour to explain it. I hope it does. We'll go to the next page. Okay, I'm taking you guys way back, maybe to high school or college or university. Anybody ever heard of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs? All right, cool. Let's go through it. So it's a pyramid, and at the bottom of that pyramid, he has 5 hierarchy of needs. And this is in sequential order of priority, the number one being the top priority. The first one is physiological needs. The second one is safety and security. Third one, love and belonging. Fourth one, self-esteem. And the top one, what do you guys think it is if you saw it? Put it up. Self-actualization. What does that mean? That is the image that we hold of ourselves in our own mind. Everybody has an image. You have a visual image in your mind, and you have a physical image that you see in the mirror. Every morning we're confronted with our physical image. We stand in front of the mirror, naked and exposed. And we're very critical of ourselves. I don't like my nose, I don't like my ears, I don't like my chin, I don't like my lips, I don't like my hair, I don't like my body. And generally we're critical with ourselves. And it's very hard to be positive with ourselves. It's easier to be positive with other people, but with ourselves, we have nobody to impress. It's just us and us, mano a mano. But the problem becomes is if you don't make a concerted effort and become disciplined to start having positive self-talk, you're never going to be able to self-actualize in your life. You have to create that image of who you want to be, not where you are right now. I'll tell you one thing about human beings, we're permanently dissatisfied, all of us. Everybody's permanently dissatisfied. We're grateful for what we have, but everybody wants more. That's just evolution, right? Human evolution implies evolving, progressing, becoming better. Every day in your life, one of two things is happening. Number one, you're either moving forwards, or number two, you're moving backwards. To the contrary, there is no standing still. Because if you do nothing today to get you towards your goals and dreams and objectives, you are not where you were yesterday because you've lost one day of your life. So if you're not growing, you're dying. You got to be progressing every single day, working on this image of yourself. So I want to do something really quick with everybody right now. This wasn't planned, but I think maybe this will help put this into perspective for you. Is everyone do me a favor and close your eyes, okay? Here's what we're going to do. I want to fast forward your life 5 years down the road. So we are in February 2024. And I want you to try really hard here and get a mental image of where your life is in 5 years from now. What car are you driving? Where are you living? What's your family life like? Do you have kids? Do you have more kids? Where's your career at? What kind of money are you making? What kind of impact are you making? Where are you 5 years from now? Where are you in February of 2019 or 2024? Get that image in your mind. Okay, do me a favor. Everybody open up your eyes. I saw a bunch of people smiling. Is anybody, with a show of hands, further ahead 5 years from now versus where they are today? Everybody. Was anybody further behind 5 years from now than where they are today? No. A simple example. And by the way, the reason I saw smiles with your eyes closed is it's a happy place to be at. To be that ultimate self that you want to be. But the problem is when you don't self-actualize, you know what happens? You self-sabotage and you self-destruct. So it's either you self-actualize or you self-sabotage. There is no in-between. Honey, is the IG live still going or no? Died? Damn. All right. Good thing we got it on tape. So what you need to do is make a concerted effort to start envisioning your future self. Visualization, anybody ever hear about that? Okay, cool. Let me tell you something. In the late 80s, they did a study where they took a dozen Olympic athletes and they stripped them down to their undergarments. And what they did is they connected a bunch of sophisticated biofeedback equipment. The best way I can give you an image is, you ever watch the music video, 50 Cent in the club? And he's on the treadmill and he's running with all the things attached to him? That's biofeedback equipment, right? And what it does, it measures muscle frequencies in the body. So what would happen is they would get these Olympic athletes to run a series of their actual events physically. And then this equipment would record the muscle frequency and it would document it. What would happen almost immediately after is they would take these athletes and sit them down in chairs. They would get them to close their eyes and take them to a deep state of meditation and visualization where they would envision actually running their events. What's really great about this experiment is the equipment actually measured the muscles firing in the same sequence as it did prior when they did it physically, even though they were doing it mentally. Now the muscle contractions are not going to be as obvious and it's not going to be as powerful, but it followed the same sequence on a very mild level. So what does that go to prove? That if you get the same muscle sequence, means you're getting the same chemical reaction, that actually doing something and envisioning doing something are literally one and the same. Why do you think Tom Brady just won the Super Bowl and he had 20,000 cameras, millions of people watching him, the entire Super Bowl is done, nobody gives a shit about anybody else, everyone's around Tom Brady. And he's standing there just grounded, well-poised, very level-headed. You know why he wasn't excited? With a shit-eating grin from ear to ear? Because he already visualized that happening so many times that when it actually happened in real life, he's like, this is exactly what I expected. He had the expectation to win. I don't know, if I'm Tom Brady, I'm like, 6 rings? What? I'd be a little bit different, I don't know. Anybody that's played in sports, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Think back to high school. Think back to professional sports. Everybody visualizes, right? Day one is not, all right, here's the playbook and here's how we're going to play. Let's play game by game and hope to win. No, day one is we are going to win the championship. We are going to get the trophy. We are going to kick butt. We are going to be number one. Everyone's sold on the dream, the vision. They visualize it. I'll give you one small example. Jim Carrey, you guys all know him? Yeah. Fellow Canadian. Okay, Jim Carrey, when he started his career, he wasn't known at all. And he'd travel around in his car, because he lived in his minivan, doing gig to gig. And what he did is he was an avid believer that he was going to change his life. So he took a personal check that he had. He didn't have a house, but he had a bank account. He took a check that he had, and he wrote his name on there, Jim Carrey. And he wrote a check for $20 million. And he post-dated the check 10 years down the road. And every night when he would sleep in his car, he would take that check. Sometimes he'd post it up right on the ceiling. So that's the last thing that he sees before he goes to sleep, and the first thing that he sees when he wakes up. I actually love that. What I did about 9 years ago is I got one of the paychecks for the old company I worked at. I blew it up to the size of a publishing clearhouse check, 8 foot by 2 foot. I laminated it, and I wrote $1 million on there, and I stuck it up on my ceiling. It was the last thing I would see every night and the first thing I would see every morning. So what Jim Carrey did from that point is he had the end in mind. He would visualize making that money, and then he just simply went to work. Because that's how easy life and goal setting is. It's a 3-step process. Number 1, get clear on what you want. Number 2, figure out what price you need to pay in order to get what it is that you want. And step number 3 is resolve to pay that price. Go to fucking work. It's pretty simple. So what he did is he went to work. Then he went from, stand-up show to stand-up show, eventually got on In Living Color, and then he did his first breakout movie. Do you guys remember what that was? Before that. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Alrighty then. That movie became one of the biggest grossing films at that time, comedy film, and his paycheck for that film was $22 million. What's more unique about this even, but he hit the date within 1 month. So he's 1 month late. He wrote the check 120 months prior, hit it on the 121st month for over $20 million for a payday. And he talks about that story. So listen, you can either deny it or you can embrace it. I'm telling you this shit works. I've been doing it my entire career. Manifestation. This stuff actually works. And at this point, I'm manifesting that my wife is going to give my dead phone to someone to charge it for me. There we go! It worked! I love you, baby. It worked. There you go.
Power positive thinking.
Yeah. NLP. I learned about this many, many years ago. About a decade and a half ago, I actually went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and he discussed the power of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. These are the conversations that we have with ourselves in our mind every single day. They say that statistically, the subconscious mind can think and operate and interpret data 5 times quicker than the conscious mind. That means for every word I speak, you're thinking 5 in your mind. You're having a multitude of thoughts running through your head right now. Oh my God, it's so hot in here. I can't wait to go to work. What time are we going to work? Is Ali wearing orange socks? I wonder when this is going to be done. When's Donovan coming on stage? You're having all these different thoughts running through your mind just concurrently. And it's up to you to grab whichever thought that you want. So understanding that you have this tornado of thoughts, you have to be able to start implementing positive self-talk every day. It could be something as simple as when you wake up in the morning, having gratitude for something in your life. being positive about something that you're going to do, having empowering words. Instead of waking up in the morning and thinking about how it's going to be a tough day, how things are rough, and negative things in your mind, implementing that positive thought, planting those seeds in your mind. Because when you start to understand and implement neuro-linguistic programming, that's what's going to start changing your mindset. That's what's going to enable the power, oh my God, so cute. Hi. The power of positive thinking. That's going to push you towards having that paradigm shift. And listen, it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be simple. What's a simple positive word that comes to mind right away? Great. Great. Yes. Yes is a positive word. I used to do that in door to door. Every time I'd walk in between doors, something simple like the word yes. So I'd walk from one door to the other door. And what am I telling myself in my mind, sometimes out loud? Yes, 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 yes. This is going to be a deal. This is the one. They're going to be home. They're going to open up the door. Because the way that it works is whatever you think about, you're going to ultimately create that physically in your life. So if you're thinking about how you're not enough, if you're thinking about negative things while you're in territory, naturally what's going to happen is you're going to gravitate towards things like that. You know why? Because the next slide talks about it. It's the law of attraction, right? Now listen, I'm kind of conflicted on this topic because they had that book that came out. Remember Rhonda Byrne wrote that book, The Australian Chick, and it got sold out 6 weeks before it got released. And the book talked about, and it was a remake of the original book written by Charles Haanel in 1918 called The Master Key. And what they talked about in The Master Key and recreated in The Secret, the law of attraction, was that like attracts like. Your mind cannot compute want or don't want, like or dislike, have or don't have. It just is able to recognize the end result. So when you get dropped off in territory and your first mind is, I hope I don't get zero. I hope that nobody's home. I hope that I don't get objections. I hope that nobody's been here before. I hope I don't have a rough day. And you're hoping not to have all these negative things happening. That's exactly what's going to be happening inevitably. Because the mind is the magnet. The reason why I'm conflicted on this topic is the book came out and talks about, oh, we have studies that show that people focused on checks and checks just came in the middle. No. The one thing that the book failed to mention is it requires action to actually back it up. But like attracts like. Do me a favor today when you leave. Think of a specific brand, make and model of car. Maybe a make of car. Think of Honda. And then drive on the street or the highway and just keep thinking of Honda. Repeat Honda in your mind over and over and over again. What's going to happen? There's going to be a lot of Hondas. You're not going to believe it. I didn't know there's this many Hondas on the road. Think of a color. Red, burgundy, blue, whatever. Whatever you focus on, which is the next topic, whatever you focus on expands. So I want to give you guys a quick example of this, all right? I need everybody to scan the room, and I want you to find at least a minimum of 5, if you can 10, 5 things that are blue. Other than your uniforms, yeah. Anything. It could be small, it could be big. 5 to 10 things that are blue. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. You got it? Everybody got it? All right, do me a favor. Close your eyes. Name me everything that was green. Okay, open up your eyes. Okay, let's do this one more time, okay? Everybody look around the room and find everything that is gray. Find as many gray things as you can. I know some of you guys are trying to find multiple colors right now. I know what you're doing. All right, close your eyes. Name me everything that's purple. It's hard, right? Open up your eyes. Let's do it one more time. Look around the room and find everything that is white. Find as many white things as you can. He put his hands up. He put his hands up. All right, close your eyes. Name me everything that's white. Go. Jeff. What else? What else? Whiteboard. What else? There we go.
The letters on the screen.
Cool. Open up your eyes. Simple but powerful. What you focus on expands. Start focusing on what you want to happen throughout your day. It's going to ultimately change the course of the results that you get by making that fundamental shift. Now, one of the things I want to discuss on the next slide with you guys, which correlates to that, is something I call the winning streak. And what I mean by that is there are wins in your life every single day. Whether you choose to accept it and embrace it or not, there are wins every single day. What happens is we become immune to the achievements or the accomplishments or the wins in our life, whether big or small, nominal. What you need to do is start putting your focus on creating a winning streak. Life is all about momentum, right? Momentum is a cruel mistress. She can turn on you on the flip of a dime, and adversely, momentum can carry you beyond your wildest dreams. Let me give you a quick example of momentum. Anybody ever watch the World Strongman competition? Mark Henry was inducted as the world's strongest man by Guinness Book of World Records. And that guy was a pioneer in that sport. And one of the events that he was very famous for is pulling an 18-wheeler truck. So if you've ever seen these dudes, they're from all around the world, probably about 350 to 385 pounds, all but 5 foot nothing. They grow sideways, right? You got a dude that's, Polish dude, Igor, walking like this, just grow sideways. They're picking up boulders and dropping them out, and it blows my mind what they're able to do. But one of the things that happens is they actually put a harness on the strongman. And then the harness is now connected to an 18-wheeler truck. Can we all agree that's a pretty big object? Yeah. Can anybody here move an 18-wheeler by themselves? No. Probably not, okay? I don't care how much of a mindset you have, it's not going to happen. So they run an average of probably about 100 meters, okay? And that 100 meters, the average time for an average strongman probably takes anywhere between 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Now listen, Donovan Bailey or Usain Bolt, they might be able to run 100 meters in 7.8523 seconds, but it takes these strongmen, a couple of minutes to trek that distance. So now they have this harness on them, right? With the world's biggest object. And I've seen this happen, by the way, with Boeing jets, 737, 757s. People are literally pulling jets and trucks. And if you've ever seen it, if I was to break it down, and it's not an exact number, but I'd say the first 1/3, first 30, 40 seconds of them is at a complete standstill, where there's actually almost no movement. And if there is movement, it's nominal. It's like 1/10 or 1/4 of an inch. But you got the strong man, you got someone like Mark Henry, and they're pulling with all of their might. Their face is turning beet red. Veins that they didn't know existed are popping out. And now they're trying to pull the world's biggest object. And for 30 to 40 seconds, they're literally at a standstill just to get an inch of movement. They finally get that inch. The second half of the race now is them taking that 1 inch and turning it into multiple inches. But all of a sudden now, the wheels are moving at a very slow pace, but as they're pulling, this truck is now moving with them. So the second third of the race is them walking in slow motion with the world's biggest object. And then the really unique part, which is the complete opposite of how it began, is the third portion of the race, where now they have the momentum of this truck, where it seems like the truck is actually moving on its own at low speeds, similar speeds to what you might see on a highway in traffic. And now the truck is moving, a handful of miles per hour, and this fight to get an inch, and then the fight to walk in slow-mo is now like a light jog. They're fucking running with the truck. Blows my mind, right? And I'd say 80% of the race, the distance of the race, occurs within the last third of the race. 80% happens within 33%, as always, like someone mentioned. And why I love that example, it paints the perspective of having patience. Because a lot of people want to be successful, and again, I'm going to refer back to social media. You know, we have this expectation of getting rich overnight and instant gratification, and there is no such thing as overnight success. One of my most famous quotes is, it actually took me 15 years to become an overnight success. Doesn't exist. You're not going to swipe up and get rich. It's not going to happen, okay? What you need to do is you need to have relentless commitment, unwavering work ethic, and make sure you follow through. But the two things that define us in terms of success is our patience when we have nothing and our attitude when we have everything. The part that people cannot fulfill is the patience when they have nothing. It's demotivating. I set a goal. Why didn't I have a record day? I read a book. Why did my life not change? I visualized. How come I'm not a millionaire yet? You know, we put in these actions and we're expecting a direct correlation. But that's not how it works. Sometimes when you plant the seed, you got to water it a bit, right? Multiple times for it to actually start growing. So going to the next slide here. The Chinese bamboo tree. Centuries ago in Eastern Asia, they grew Chinese bamboo trees, which they still do. Now, a Chinese bamboo tree, statistically, within a period of 5 years, grows a whopping record 80 feet tall. 5 years, 80 feet. What people don't know statistically is that the first full year of planting this tree with seeds underneath the ground, the tree actually doesn't break soil. It doesn't break through the ground. So you have to water this plant 2 to 3 times a day, 365 days a year, for an entire year with no signs of visible growth. The second year, it still doesn't break soil. Believe it or not, the third year, it still remains underground. The fourth year, still remains underground. Can you imagine, by the way, being that dude or that girl that's planting this bamboo tree? You gotta water it every day, 365 days a year. You know, you're 1,400 days in, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why is this tree not growing? I'd be so demotivated. Now you go into your fifth year. Fifth year. For the first 46 weeks of the fifth year, there are no signs of visible growth. So for 4 years and 46 weeks, there are no signs of growth from this bamboo tree. And what happens is within the last 6 weeks, something remarkable occurs. Not only does the tree break soil and it becomes visible, it goes from breaking soil to 80 feet tall within a period of 6 weeks. Yeah. So what does that mean exactly? How do we correlate that to our own lives? Well, a lot of times we put in the effort and we put in the actions and we have good intentions, but sometimes we may not see the results that we want immediately or within the time that we want it. Now listen, there's a point where you got to be like, all right, you know, maybe I'm doing something wrong and I got to take recourse. Like, you don't want to stand there for 25 years planting this bamboo tree and watering it and you're like, 25 years, what's going on? You got to be able to understand that if you're putting in the right actions, right, and you have good intentions, inevitably what will happen is you will break the soil and you will experience that expedited, accelerated, exponential growth that we're all looking for. But a lot of people lack that patience, right? They see someone like Brandon, owns a top security company, got the exotic cars, got the family, got the lifestyle. I want that, but they don't realize all the shit that he had to go through and he's still going through, like all of us have, right? I'm going to get to learn everybody's stories today and I want to know about it. We've all gone through struggles. but you just have to have that patience to know that as long as you're doing the right things, it's gonna happen. Just like door knocking, right? Listen, door to door is a science. Not an exact science, but it's a pure science. If I knock enough doors and talk to enough customers, eventually I'm gonna get the results that I want. Because when it's 8:30 at night and you got half an hour left on the clock and you've had a bad day and you've had a lot of objections and you've been rejected all day and it might be cold and it might be dark. And listen, door to door is one of the loneliest professions out there, right? When you're knocking door to door, you're in a dark neighborhood, you're knocking on doors, heat comes out and hits you, you see the light, hit my goal. So I decided to work, and this is the latest I've ever done it, and I don't think you guys should do it, 11:30 p.m. And I got to 11:30, and I had 118 sales. I missed my goal by 7. And I was at the end of this row, and there was one door in the corner. And on my street sheet, I tried all day. They weren't home. So I'm like, I'm not going to go there. Nobody's home. Even if I get it, it's 119. I missed my goal. It's time to pack up. So they didn't have an elevator, so I took the stairs. So I walked all the way down the stairs, got towards my car, and as soon as I grabbed the handle, for some reason, I'm like, you know what? That's a loser mentality. Why am I not knocking this door? A deal's a deal. So I decided to walk back into the building, walked up 5 flights of stairs, came back and knocked on the door. This lady opened up the door. She was an Indian lady in probably her mid-40s, all but 4 foot nothing, right? Comes out, very nice. I pitched her, I closed her, and I got 119. And I thanked her. Then I walked away, went to the stairs. Midway down the stairs, I said, I forgot to ask her if she owns other properties. And one of the things I did really well in door-to-door is I would constantly get referrals and ask if they had other properties. And then I stopped, I'm like, the fuck you talking about, Allie? She's not gonna own another property. She lives in this small building. Why would she own another property? She's renting this house, she doesn't even own it. And I said, no, just go back, man, just go back, just go back. And I went back up, I forgot her name, and I said, ma'am, I forgot to ask you a question. Are there any other properties you own? And she said, actually, I do. I said, oh, what properties do you own? She says, I own 7 high-rise apartment buildings, me and my husband. Wow. We're just temporarily living here until our house is custom built. Did you want to see the bills? She brought out 7 bills for an average of $20,000 to $40,000 each. Oh my God. And we got paid on volume in commercial. This one door not only got me to 126 deals, and I beat my goal by 1, I literally made shy of $20,000 at that door from going back and asking one question. That was the 6 weeks, right? I'm standing there, I'm knocking, 11:30 at night, 4 years and 46 weeks, and I'm like, this is not breaking through the soil. I wasted all this time. I came back and I said, you know what? One more drop of water. And I did that, and fucking 80 feet grew right in front of me. It's a simple example, but a powerful one. This is one of my favorite analogies that I think about all the time in life, is that work that you put in 80% of the work sometimes to see 20% of the result, and then that 20% comes in, and you experience, pun intended, 80% of that growth inevitably. So, with that said, if you want to go to the next slide, I think we're in our final slide right now. So basically, to wrap up here, we had a lot of different topics that we discussed today. My intention here is I'm not looking to motivate, even though I come off that way. I'm not looking to inspire, because you guys have your own sources of inspiration within. I'm just here to share perspective. Just like that picture showed, that you may view things a certain way, but if you change your perception of things, you change your perception, that will change your perspective. You change your perspective, and that can inevitably change your life for the better. So at the end of the day, what we need to recognize is you guys are part of an incredible opportunity. I've only recently got to know about AMSEC and learning to know Brendan and his partners and everybody here. And listen, I've been to a lot of sales organizations. I kept telling my wife, I said, I fucking love the culture here. I'm a culture guy. I'm all about culture. You know, I believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I didn't always have a plan growing up. I wasn't always an avid goal setter, but I knew how to create a winning culture. That's what you guys have here. What it's going to take is a few individuals in this room to really step it up. It's Kobe, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, people like Kobe. First time ever, 200 was broken, right? All right, let me tell you one quick story and I'll wrap up. Anybody ever hear of Roger Bannister? Show of hands. Okay, a couple of you. Not too popular of a name.
Great story.
Yeah. Anybody ever heard the story of the 4-minute mile? Okay, so back in the 60s, an individual by the name of Roger Bannister wanted to run a mile in under 4 minutes. It had never been done in the history of mankind. In fact, doctors and physicians said that if a human being attempted to run a mile in under 4 minutes, that the overwhelming amount of pressure exerted onto the body would make them collapse, have a heart attack, and die. That it was a physical impossibility. So people were conditioned that it couldn't be done. And what this individual did is not only did he start training physically, he started training mentally as well, convincing himself that he can run a mile in under 4 minutes. And he spent months and years practicing and reforming his craft. And he went from 4 minutes and 12 seconds to 4 minutes and 7 seconds to 4 minutes and 3 seconds, 4 minutes and 1 second. And in the mid-60s became the first human in history to run a single mile in under 4 minutes. What's powerful about this story is not the fact that Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile. It's the fact that he broke the mold. He took something that was a barrier, a limitation imposed on humans, and he broke the mold. And 6 months later, somebody else did it. 6 weeks later, 3 other people did it. Year after year, dozens and now hundreds of people have done it. And today, the 4-minute mile is no longer this insurmountable feat. My nephew, who just turned 19, ran a 4-minute mile in high school at the age of 16. That's how common the 4-minute mile now is, that it's a common occurrence. That ceiling is now the floor. That barrier is now the new standard. I'm hoping that that's what's happened here with breaking 200. That 200 used to be that ceiling, but if one person did it, and you don't have to be that person that did it, but if one person did it, then you can do it, then someone else does it, becomes a ripple effect. So next year when awards are being given away, the new barrier now is 250, or maybe it's 300, right? Spartans, 300! Spartan! I look like the Persian dude too, minus the abs. Spartan! I can't, my pants are too tight, they're gonna rip. Mindset. I keep saying one more story, but last one and I'm done. Anybody know Dennis Rodman? Yeah. One of my favorite stories of mindset. You see the guy, right, on the surface, and he's like the bad boy, the wild guy of the NBA. He's got the multiple piercings, multiple tattoos, hair color like a lollipop, out of control, pushing people, starting stuff. Like, he's a character, right? Big character. Then you add the wardrobe on top with, it's just his wild, eccentric personality. But what happened is there's a name, this individual. His name is Bill Bartman, okay? Bill Bartman, at the age of 14, ran away from home. He upgraded at the age of 15 and joined a street gang. At the age of 16, he got into a very big altercation where he was paralyzed from the waist down. At 17 years old, he lay down in the hospital bed with doctors telling him he will never walk again, which destroyed his life. And every day he sat in that hospital bed, he would tell the doctors that one day I'm going to walk again. And what he would do every day is he created a series of physical and mental exercises, visualizing that he can walk again. And every so often, every couple of days, he'd call in a doctor. Say, doctor, look, I think I can move my toe. It doesn't look like it's moving, but I feel like it's moving. And every time the doctor would have this wooden stick right by his bed, and it had a nail on the end of it. And he'd grab this wooden stick, and he'd stretch out his leg on the bed, and he'd scrape the nail across his leg where pinpricks of blood would come out. And he said, Bill, did you feel that? Bill said, no. He says, Bill, you're never going to walk again. Just accept it. You are now paralyzed from the waist down. That hurt him, right? The pain that he'd never be able to walk again. So for the next few weeks, without telling the doctors and getting that negative response, every night he would do series of exercises to wiggle his toes. Every night he would visualize emphatically that one day he's going to be able to do it. After 3 months of being in the hospital, one night he told himself, this is it. This is the night I'm going to walk. And he used his butt to shift his legs so his legs come off the bed, and he slowly placed them on the ground. For the first time in many months, the soles of his feet actually had feeling, and he felt the cold tile floor in the hospital room. And what he started doing is he stood up and he held the rail and he started taking small steps, and he would hold on to things in the room. And as he was walking, he knocked something over. And this was in the wee hours of the morning, a.m. The hospital is dark. Nurses are on standby expecting. The patients are sleeping. The nurse hears a lot of commotion, starts walking towards the room. As she walks towards the room, Bill's walking towards the door. They both meet at the door at the same time. She opens the door and turns on the light and sees somebody standing in front of her. Now, when you're a nurse walking into a room with someone that's been paralyzed from the waist down, you're walking in there with the expectation that nobody is in the room. So when somebody's standing there, you don't have enough time for your mind to comprehend who is this standing in front of me. You just see a dark image, shadow in front of you, and you freak out. That's what she did. And there was a panic button on the side of the door. So she yelled and belched out a big scream, and she slapped this button. And all of a sudden, all the sirens started going off in the hospital. Woo, 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 woo! Nurses and doctors and employees and staff all ran to the door. It was a spectacle. He said there was over 30 people standing at the front door to see Bill Bartman standing on his own for the first time after being paralyzed from the waist down. He said that was one of the moments that actually changed his life. From there, he stayed for a few more weeks and eventually got released. From that point, he made a commitment that visualization works, and I'm going to start applying this to my life. I'll fast forward a bit. He eventually built a debt collection company employing over 10,000 people, built a 10-figure business, and became one of the wealthiest people in North America. At one point, he became the 25th wealthiest person in the United States and ended up buying the Chicago Bulls during their dynasty, right, in the 90s. That's when you had the dream team. You had Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. This is how Rodman plays into the story. So he buys the team, and you got, the infamous coach, Phil Jackson. So Bill gets really intrigued and starts showing up to basketball practice. And every day in warm-up, everybody was warming up. Michael Jordan was the first one on the court, the last one off. Everybody had a good synergy and a good vibe to them. Everybody, bench warmers, starters, everybody was practicing. Except for one person, Rodman. Rodman wasn't practicing. Rodman was sitting on the bench. And Rodman was sitting on the bench with, this is how old we are, a Walkman. right? He had a Walkman on, and he had a towel over his head, and he was leaned over, just bobbing his head during practice. And every time everybody would ask Rodman, what are you doing? How come you're not practicing? He says, I'm listening to Pearl Jam. I want to listen to music. That's all I want to do. And he would disguise it with him listening to music. And Bill Bartman was really intrigued by Rodman and like his tendencies, so he got to know him on a deeper level. And for the first time ever, Rodman exposed to Bill Bartman what he was actually listening to, and it wasn't Pearl Jam. Dennis Rodman was listening to a recording of Dennis Rodman telling Dennis Rodman that he's the best rebounder in the NBA.
What the
On a loop. So he's sitting there with these headphones on, towel over his head. Dennis Rodman, you are the best rebounder in the NBA. Dennis Rodman, you are the best rebounder in the NBA. What happened? Became the best rebounder in the NBA. There's so many examples that are out there. One of the Hall of Famers and legends when it comes to rebounding spearheaded that space and broke records that to this day, some of them have not been broken. Came from a guy who didn't physically warm up and practice with his team. Came from a guy that was sitting down, listening to a recording of himself, telling himself that he's the best rebounder. If that doesn't exemplify the power of your mind and the mindset of a champion, I don't know what will. Guys, on that note, thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
See you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Can you put the next slide on? Next slide?
Yeah.
One more slide. Hold on, real quick. Please follow me for more content.